Today, we're back again talking about Todd's newest program, Healing Infidelity from the Inside Out. And for those of you who have not caught the first episode, this is the second episode. I want to share a little bit about why we're doing this. Okay. We wanted to give the listeners, anybody who's tuning in, watching, or listening, a little peek into Todd's program so that you understand why Todd created it and some of the key concepts and how it can help people whose lives have been upended by infidelity. So today is part 2 of our 7-part series on healing infidelity from the inside out. And we're here talking about specifically about infidelity and attachment styles. If you don't know what that's about, we're going to get into all of that. And if you didn't catch the first episode in the series where we discussed what each partner is experiencing when they first come in or start to work on healing from infidelity and the importance of learning how to effectively communicate so you can begin the healing process, we've got the link for you right down in the show notes below. But before we get started in today's interview, I want to make sure that everybody knows about your resource that you've created. So if you're ready to start the healing process after an affair has upended your life, you'll want to get your hands on proven strategies that he's used when working with thousands of couples. And this is his free guide to healing infidelity from the inside out. And if you want to get that, we've got the link right down below in the show notes. So Todd, let's dive into, so today this is what is in module 2 of your program. And we're talking about infidelity and attachment styles. So let's dive into the first question. So why do couples who are healing from infidelity need to take the time to identify and understand their specific attachment styles? And, there might be people too, Todd, who don't really even understand what that is.
I'll go into that.
So you might want to talk, explain that.
I'll go into
too.
all that.
Okay.
The thing that I learned in being a therapist and also a professor, where I taught a lot of neurobiology and talked about early childhood development and brain development and all that, is that I learned as a professor and as a therapist, as a trauma therapist, as a couples therapist, that the reason that motivational drive that we all have is to attach. We need to attach to survive. A baby without a mommy and daddy is going to die, right? So physically. So we need that. But beyond that, we also have learned we need touch. We need connection. We know that the story of Romanian orphanage where, I forget what disaster it was, but a lot of parents died and the children were put in orphanages. These very young children, very young, like months old, year old. And they were given all the physical care, but they didn't get touched. They didn't get held. They didn't get coddled. And the babies had tremendous problems. Some of them died from marasmus, which is a depression, that can lead to death in early children when they don't have enough attachment. So we need to attach. And it's really crucial. So fast forward to here, I'm working with infidelity, and I found that there are different factors that contribute to why infidelity happens. There's also different factors that contribute to how the betrayed person responds to the discovered infidelity. But what I found was the core has to do with childhood attachment, how we attach as children, how we attach as adults. And there are different attachment styles. There's 4 attachment styles, but I'm really not going to talk about the 4th, which is much more severe. It's not really helpful for us to talk about that. But the one is secure attachment. Secure attachment is when a baby, let's say, attaches to mommy, daddy, caregiver, caretaker, in ways that they feel like you got me, you're tuning into me. You understand when I'm sad. You get that I'm angry. You get that I'm happy and excited. You respond kind of based on how I'm experiencing things as opposed to what you're going through. Okay. And what happens is when the child experiences that, they develop a secure attachment and they grow up as adults being able to self-soothe, be able to calm themselves down, and also enliven themselves with things that they want to do.
Mhm.
And they also allow others to do the same to them.
Mhm.
Help them. They could receive love. They could be heard as adults. Adults who says, "Yeah, I, I was really having a hard time, so I talked to my partner and we talked it out, and I felt good that my partner was there for me." That's a healthy thing. That's
Right.
part of what a secure attachment looks like. Unfortunately, for many of us, we don't have that secure attachment style. Parents have their own issues. We're not blaming anybody. I'm not saying they're bad, but they aren't regulating their emotions well enough to be able to be tuned in to their child on a consistent basis. No parent has to be perfect, but we have to, more times than not, be tuned in, be attuned.
Mhm.
If you have a parent that either was inconsistent or basically said, just, I don't have time for you, if you're in pain, basically the message is, you're in pain, deal with it. Okay. Those are not going to develop secure attachment styles.
Right.
The inconsistent parenting style oftentimes leads to a person who has what we call an anxious attachment style, so that they constantly need reassurance. Let's say a person who their partner is um, a little late for dinner, and that you blast their text, 50 texts, where are you, where are you, where are you, you just need that,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
then the other kind of attachment style, I'm trying to keep this very succinct, is the
Mhm.
avoidant attachment style. When a person as a child grew up in a family where they kind of learned that you're there for me physically, maybe, but emotionally, if I'm in pain, I'm on my own. That person doesn't learn how to receive, doesn't let others regulate them. So they become auto regulators. And what I've learned is when a person's either one insecure attachment style, which is their auto regulators, their avoidance attachment style, they have to work things out on their own, that can increase the chance of infidelity. And also, and there's reasons for that, which we could go into. And
Okay, yeah,
also the
because
other
I'm
kind of
sure
style.
people wanna know why, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, let me say it right now. So, again, being succinct about it, it's complex, but in a way, it's not complex. If you are one of those people that have an avoidance attachment style, you're not going to feel very close to your partner. Not necessarily that your partner is not a good person, it's that you're not
Mhm.
receiving. You're not open to being heard, to being, and so what happens is you're more distant. And when you're more distant and you're not really able to develop that cohesiveness, that closeness with your partner, it's easier to have a secret. And
Mhm.
one secret can lead to a bigger secret, which can lead to a bigger secret. Whereas the couple who develops what we call an earned secure attachment, where
Mhm.
they're really on a consistent basis sharing and connecting, and even though they're able to self-regulate, they're
Mhm.
also able to let you in and be vulnerable and let you regulate me. I'm not saying it's zero, but the chances of having a secret of any kind goes way down because you've developed this closeness, this connection, and you don't want to mess that up. So I'm sure people hearing that can relate a little bit to what I'm saying. Most couples don't have the earned secure attachment. Most of them don't have that. And it's because it's difficult, because there's all kinds of blocks, like we said in the last module, to communication
Yep.
when we don't uh, understand what we need to do to have an earned secure attachment style. So that's kind of it for individuals and how it works as a couple.
Are you pretty like, when someone comes in and is working with you, um, does it take I mean, do you know pretty quickly from talking to them
Hmm.
what
Yeah, yeah, I could tell by their background, but I also could tell by their behavior mostly. A person who is constantly looking over the shoulders and already have an anxious attachment style. And by the way, that person might constantly need to be soothed. And so if they're having a tough time, let's say in their marriage or in their life, and some coworker starts to give them some attention, they might cling to it.
Mhm.
So that's the other
Okay.
the anxious attachment style that can also lead to that. And it's also for the person who's betrayed. whether you have a secure attachment style, an avoidant attachment style, or an anxious attachment style, is going to also affect how you deal with the infidelity, and how it colors the trajectory of your recovery too. That's where this program comes in, and that's where I come in to help people navigate that, no matter what attachment style they have, so
Yeah.
that they can develop that earned secure attachment style. Anyway, that's
Okay, great. Well, that kind of like leads us, I think, into our second question here is about having you explain the process and the importance of connecting the dots between childhood experiences and adult relationship behaviors. So,
yes,
you know,
right, right.
so maybe,
Well, obviously, one of the things that I'm always challenged with is people's the way, the mindsets about infidelity. Infidelity, it comes with a lot of judgment towards the person who
oh, yes,
betrayed, a lot
yes,
of judgment. And
yes.
a person who has problems with alcohol, who regulates their emotions through alcohol or drugs, um, or even gambling, let's say, there's not the same kind of judgment. And I understand it. It's because it's so painful to be betrayed. And even though what I'm about to say might sound like a way out for the person who betrayed, I'm not saying that it's good. It's terrible. It's hurtful. I call it
Mm-hmm.
an interpersonal crime, because you
Mm-hmm.
steal from the person who was betrayed the opportunity to make decisions based on what is really true, and that is stealing. Really, it's not good. However, um, the person who betrayed, oftentimes it's helpful to look at one's childhood and look at what made me do it. Attachment attachment styles, which comes from attachment theory, is also about how we regulate our emotions. And we need to get curious about, how did I learn how to regulate my emotions as a child, which would lead me to, so what does that have to do with why I did this infidelity?
Mm-hmm.
And there is a link always to that, always to that. There's always that, because everything we do is to regulate our emotions. It could be healthy ways that are kind and caring to me and my partner. It could be unhealthy ways. And obviously, infidelity is one of those unhealthy ways that dishonors the betrayed person. But we want to look more deeply at what made the betrayer do what they did, and it is connecting the dots. And for the person who was the victim of the betrayal, we need to also have that person connect the dots
Mm-hmm.
too, about, if the person, for example, was abandoned or had betrayal in their childhood, it's going to be even more triggering when their spouse betrayed them or abandoned them. So
Yeah. Yeah. And it might be really helpful for people listening because we've talked a lot about theory. So maybe can you give an example of, you know, this, connecting the dots, like, from your work with people? Obviously, we're not going to share the names of the people, but I
sure,
know I'm putting
sure.
you on the spot, but,
No,
I think it's really helpful.
I have no shortage of examples, because every couple has this. This is not something where I got to say which couple has issues with, where attachment always plays a role.
Whether or
So
not it's infidelity or anybody coming to
yes,
see you for something else, right? I mean,
yes,
right.
absolutely. I'll give you a
Hmm.
great example. I'm working with a woman right now. I'm not seeing the couple. I'm working
Right.
with a woman who cheated on her husband multiple times, and he is very angry, and at the moment does not want to work on the marriage. And she was, when she came to see me, she was racked with guilt and shame and remorse, and how could I do such a thing to this man that I
Hmm.
love? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? I understand that. But when we explored her childhood, she has she had a father who had pornographic material everywhere and exposed her and her sister when they were toddlers. It was all over the house and they would see it. But that sexualization wasn't the main problem. She told me how she would get triggered when she hears a squeaky sound. And I said, why do you get triggered when you hear a squeak?
Huh.
It was because my dad would tell my mom, and I would hear this over and over again, that she was a fat, ugly woman. And then right after that, my mom would go on the elliptical in their bedroom or their exercise room to try to do that. Like she was so, her self-esteem was so beaten down by her um, husband that she would get on the elliptical and do that. Now, and then this woman, that my client, had an eating disorder where she became anorexic and was losing a lot of weight. And so I start to connect it. We start to connect some of these dots,
Mm-hmm.
and we go, well, so you had a mom who wasn't strong for you
Mm-hmm.
because she was already so upset. You had a dad that was like he just was so impulsive. So she definitely had an avoidance attachment style that nobody knew. I mean, she was very successful. Nobody knew of how she experienced herself, which was, I'm never feeling good enough. I always felt like I had to prove myself all the time. And I met my husband. I always felt like I wasn't good enough for him. And
Mm.
um, I don't, I don't know. I think I was too nervous to let him in, and I pushed him away. And the husband seems to be a very avoidant kind of person too, so maybe not very accessible. But I haven't seen him, so it's a little unfair to say that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
what does she do? She's trying to prove herself. She feels like she's not good enough. She's such a prime candidate to cheat. And for a moment, just like a drug, a man would give her attention, and she felt okay again, just like back in when she would starve herself. It would
Okay.
be like, I have some control, I have some power. So what she's been somebody who's been wildly successful in just 9, 10 sessions with me, because she's learning. She has someone to share. She has me. One of the roles of a therapist is to attach, right? To help them see what a secure attachment
Mm-hmm.
feels like,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
being able to connect. I mean, we've done some EMDR, which is the trauma treatment I use, and helped her heal for some using that. But it's also the relationship itself. She's starting to experience what it's like to have someone where she could be open to for the first time. You know,
Wow.
there's
A
me and
safe
maybe
place.
another safe, a few safe people. I'm one of the safe people, and this is all really new for her. And she's learning that she wasn't a bad person. She was a deprived person. She was deprived. And why I'm going to this with you is why I created this program. Is I realized whether a person, we got to look at what was missing. Not only were you abused, but what didn't you get that you needed? And there was some very important. She didn't get the experience what a secure attachment felt like, which would make her feel valuable. That's what happens to a child where they have someone who, you know,
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
be there for them. So,
So and I think it makes, I mean, for both parties, I'm just, I know there's no excuse, for, it is a terrible thing. But if one was the victim, I would think understanding these other dynamics could, and I say it, tell me if I'm right or wrong, gives you a better understanding, but also takes it, makes it less like it's personal to you. Like you
right,
weren't enough as the
right,
victim, because that's, I think,
right,
the
right.
victim feels that way, like I'm not enough
It's,
and
yeah,
all of that. So
yeah,
understanding these things kind of helps
yes.
both parties heal. Am I correct about that?
You're absolutely correct. Look, I'm my job is to help people look at what's true, and the truth, whether people want to hear this or not, is there's no bad people.
No.
And including the person who was betrayed, who oftentimes, you're right, was, I'm not enough. You found somebody
Mm-hmm.
else, I must not be enough. When it's
Mm-hmm.
really about other things that person who was betrayed has absolutely no control over. Nobody's perfect. We all have flaws. My
Mm-hmm.
wife never cheated on me, and I have plenty of flaws. It's not that I'm so great. It's
Right.
not that at all. It's that that's not the way. If she had a child, if she would, that's not how she regulated. And so when a person who cheats, it's never because of the person who was betrayed.
Yeah. We've
Now,
come a
does
long
that
way
mean,
from that in
yeah, yeah,
therapy, from the way it
yeah,
used to be done,
yeah,
20, 30 years ago, right? I mean,
yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of new knowledge. Am I correct about that?
Oh, yes, and and a lot of it is because, again, theories like attachment theory, we start to understand that people need to regulate themselves one way or the
Hmm.
other,
Hmm.
and oftentimes, and this is the other thing I talk about in module 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. So I think I should introduce it just a little bit here. Is
Sure.
we're made up of parts. There's different parts of us. And so this woman, for example, she was like, how can I do this to my husband, right? That's true. There's a part of her that's quite sensitive to, she's sensible. It's like, that was a terrible thing I did. And it was a terrible thing she did. But that's not the part that cheated. So
No.
I'm interested in to understand and give some love and attention to the part that cheated. Because that part
Yeah.
that cheated isn't bad. The part that cheated was protecting the wounded parts in some ways. It's a
It's
way that your system comes together and tries to deal with deep wounds. Her wounds of feeling not good enough, her wounds of feeling alone, um, insignificant. Well, that part wasn't thinking about
hmm
what's the right thing to do in this moment. And
yeah.
so the key is not to, I always say, when I taught, was a professor, I would say to the graduate students, you never want to say or think to the client what's wrong with you. You want to say what happened to you. That's always
Ah,
important. What happened to you? And this part that was wounded, okay, ends up. I mean, we could go through a whole thing on that. I don't want to go too much, but that it is protected by the parts that act out,
yeah,
and that's not okay because it hurt her husband badly.
right.
But we need to understand and connect those dots. And that's the only way we can find the true solutions so that there's no need to cheat again.
Yeah. I think we've kind of answered number three. So number three was how do childhood attachment issues contribute to the dynamics of infidelity.
Yeah,
I think
they all
we
run
kind and
together.
that's okay. Yeah, it's all great. It's all great. But so
Right.
so the last question really is that, and I think this would be really helpful for people who are listening and trying to think about how they're going to navigate this process. So what are some of the key exercises or reflections that's part of the program that are included in this module that's going to help, like, you know, someone uncover those hidden childhood attachment issues? And it could be even something that, you know, what do you talk about in the course? And I mean, because everything's really taken from your work as a successful therapist who helps people, heal from infidelity. So, what are they?
Well,
I mean,
I mean, obviously, um, this is something where I encourage people to go inside, literally inside. What, what, being curious about oneself, inquiring, what about me have I not paid attention to? We're busy living our lives. We're not
mhm,
paying attention to our wounds. We sometimes don't even, we're not even in touch with them. So, of course, in the program, in my therapy, there's always exercises, journaling, and uh, these exercises are designed to help people ask the questions like, "What happened to me? What happened to me? Um,
yeah,
what?
because we don't think about that.
Yeah,
We don't think about it
no,
like from an adult point of view.
no,
We don't. We
right?
spend much time, working, raising
Yeah,
families, all this
yeah,
stuff. I mean, just living our lives, but we don't stop and
yeah,
think, like, especially if there's a crisis going on in our
right,
lives, like
right.
what caused
And
my
there's
reaction or
always
whatever.
and the cause is always deeper than we think it is. It's
Yeah.
not you're just an immoral person. I'm sorry, I've done this for 40 years. It's not the truth. It's not the truth. Um, It's not that simple, even though, again, it was hurtful. And I'm not saying if a person's betrayed that they should stay in the marriage. They should. That's up to them. But what I'm
Right.
saying is, we need to, whether I'm the betrayed or the betrayer, I need to look inside and go, what happened to me? Um, how were my feelings dealt with in my family?
What was that?
It's just
This is
somebody
what
who's moved the
happens when
chair.
you're
Yeah,
outside.
yeah. It's just a loud metal chair that moved. That's all it was. Um, yeah, what, uh, yeah, how were my feelings handled? It's something people don't even necessarily think about. And they start to, I have had people talk to family, relatives, siblings, older siblings, especially sometimes, like, what do you think? And they start to connect the dots. Like it starts to make some sense. And again, in module 2 here, we're really talking about discovery. We talk about my whole process of discovery,
Hmm.
healing, makeover. This is part of the discovery phase, module 1, module 2. It's like, what's going on? What's going on
Right.
right now in my heart and emotions and feelings, and how do I deal with it? That's module 1. Module 2 is what goes on deeper. Let's connect the dots. What might be contributing to this? And so
Right.
we ask those questions of ourselves and our family members, if you want, um, and you get interested, and then you need to be just as interested in your partners, because
Yeah.
we want to look at what's the deeper truth,
Right.
not some
It's those
superficial
conversations.
judgments or superficial ideas, but what's really true. Where did it hurt? What didn't you get? What didn't I get when I need emotionally? You know, those are the kinds of things we don't think about. And the problem is that if we're in a family where there wasn't a lot of emotional connection, we don't even know it. It's kind of that was the soup we were in. That was the environment we were in. We don't even know it. So you start to think about, like, oh yeah, nobody. You might want to think about your friends and maybe their families and how they might have been different. You just want to get
Oh yeah.
curious.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
And
that's one of the major things there to
that's
do, is
why
to get
you want
curious.
you need anybody listening in. This is why you need, if you're in a crisis like this, is you either need to get, one-on-one professional help, or get a program where you can really be guided through these
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
so that you can heal, whether or not your partner's willing to do it or you are ready to do it yourself, right? Because it only takes one
Yeah.
person, right, to change the
Yeah.
dynamic, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're staying in the
To a
marriage,
degree. To a
right?
degree.
If you're
I mean, I think it takes one person to start a change. I
right,
think in these cases with infidelity, um, like the woman I'm talking about, she's doing
right,
all the work she's got to do. If
right,
he's if he's gonna only stay in the victim state, look, he was a victim, but he's not just a victim. So if the
yeah,
person only stays in the victim change stage and isn't able to seek what else might be going on, then no matter what she does, nothing's going to change. And that's the way it is going to be. It's part of the work that she had to do, is to accept she can't control him. But, the program that I have done is best done with both people participating and learning, and,
mhm,
but it's set up that way. But even if one person starts the process, oftentimes it gets things going for sure.
exactly, because they see the other person doing the work. And then in
Yeah.
some cases, even if your partner isn't willing to do the work and you leave them, you still need to do the self work, so that you personally, even if you're the betrayer or the betrayed, you still need to do the work, because
Yes.
it'll just, if you don't, is and I'm, if you're the betrayer, if they don't do the work, the same things are going to keep happening. Is that, or higher
Yeah.
likelihood, if you
It's
don't
it's,
take care of
it's
these things?
definite, definite. I mean, because we our early childhood stuff, our the emotions, the sensations, the beliefs that we live in because of it run us.
Hmm.
It doesn't just, that's why it's titled Healing Infidelity from the Inside Out. And module 2 is where it really gets down and dirty to the inside.
Yep.
And it's very crucial.
Yep. Yep. That's, yeah, that's important. So, That's awesome. So is there anything else you want to add here, Todd? Are we?
Well, I threw a lot out there.
Yeah, you
You
did.
know, once again, I want to say that this conversation we're having is really the core of why I did the program, and from that, we go to some of the later modules where we get into the healing, and it's important to understand more deeply what we do and why we do it, and it all starts to, look, when things start to make sense on some level, that feels good, whether I'm the betrayed person or the betrayer. That at least it starts to make sense, and from that place, then there are things we could do as individuals and as a couple that could really help heal and ultimately lead to a better relationship than we ever had.
Right. Yep. And that's where we're going. So, if you're listening to this, you're going to want to listen to the rest of the series, because we're going to navigate this whole path of what you teach inside of your program, all the way so people can understand here's where you start, here's the next step, the next step, the next step. And then here is where you end up if you're willing
Right,
to go down the path.
right,
So, and
exactly.
that's what's so great, because in the beginning I talked about your free resource, healing and the free guide to healing infidelity from the inside out. You just in that we just you discuss, or take people through the process so they understand the hows and the whys, why this works, and it
Yeah,
mirrors
yeah.
exactly what you teach and
Mhm,
the work you do, you've
mhm,
done successfully with thousands of couples. So
mhm.
again, if you want that, we've got that link right down below, because you're going to want to grab that. And there'll be more things for those of you who get that link and download that guide. We've got all kinds of other free, great resources coming your way as we work through this program. And, we want to equip people, you do, with the tools so that they can heal. So definitely
Yeah,
grab that and
yeah.
stay tuned for more, because we've got more stuff coming.
Yes, and this is all about having the relationship you really want and dream of. It is possible,
Yep.
and everyone here is capable of it. Just gotta go down, do a little deep dive, come out the other way, and have some tools and have some understandings, and it's good stuff.
And sometimes the infidelity is a cry for, or not, I mean, it's a symptom that someone needs to work on. I mean, isn't that what you're
It's a
saying?
it's a wake up call. Look,
Wake up call.
again,
Yeah.
I might say this every for every module here, but it's a problem. We're not minimizing
Yeah.
infidelity,
Right.
but it's not the problem. It's it's the 900th domino of when you have all the lower dominoes, and we need to look at where that first domino, second domino is, and
Right.
so then we could have a different trajectory here. And that's all I'm saying. That's what's
Right.
true.
And
That's what's true.
hopefully that will help people who are, in the throes of, the victim, because that's really, really hurtful to be the victim of this.
Mhm.
I know the person who's done it too feels terrible, but
Sure,
sometimes, so again, we want to be
sure,
a beacon of hope for both parties, that
absolutely.
giving them the tools and the process that
Mhm.
you can come out the other side and be stronger and better.
Exactly, exactly. It's good.
Right? Okay.
Yeah,
So great.
well said,
Well, thank you.
Kristen. Yeah, thank
Well, I
you.
feel like we've been working together for a long time, so I understand we've discussed this, a lot over the years, and worked a lot with your programs and everything. So I feel like I've had an inside seat of this,
Yeah,
and I've
yeah.
had
You're
my
going
own
to do the next
experiences.
program. Yeah, you'll do the level two. No, this is a complete program. There's no level two. This is what you want. This is what you need. I'm just being silly. All right.
But yes. All right.
Thanks.
Well, thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
And again, stay tuned for more. We've got a lot more great information and help for anybody who's going through this process. So
Bye bye.